Welcome. We're glad you're joining us tonight. It is another Tuesday night. We are here for episode 212. Thanks for joining. And as always, we encourage you to ask questions. I actually have a couple of questions for the audience, for the listener tonight, but I'll wait until folks kind of file in to ask those. In way of an intro, I've shared this story in some context. I don't think it was in the podcast, and so I'm going to go ahead and share it again. But there's a story, I can't remember the name of the book. Undaunted Courage is the story of actually it's based off a lot of journal accounts of the Lewis and Clark expedition to reach the West Coast through land and map the western half of the United States from that side of the Mississippi. And so there was a story that is a well-documented story of at some point they're in the Missouri River and they're trying to navigate this, massive expanse of the river, and a storm is brewing. It gets really, really bad. And at one point it's so bad that one of their two boats, which is more like a really large canoe, starts looking like it's going to capsize. And so, one guy, I believe it was William Clark, is in a separate boat. Meriwether Lewis, I think, was in charge of the other boat, but was actually on the land at this specific time. And so the pilot of the boat was a man named Toussaint Charbonnois. I think that's how you say his name. There's a French man who's in charge of basically steering this boat, and he's basically the captain of the boat. He's not the leader of the expedition at all, but he's the captain of this specific boat. And things get so bad that this guy freaks out so bad that he starts taking critical supplies and throwing them overboard to try and, he's panicking. It's not a logical decision, but he's panicking. And so he's throwing these supplies overboard. Well, his wife is Sacagawea, who many people know the name. Sacagawea at this particular time was in the other boat. She's in the back of this other boat, and she's sitting in the back. She's 17 to 18 at the time, and she had just given birth to their son, their first son. Mm. And so you got to, anybody who has a wife who's had kids understands that pregnancy, pre, mid, and post-pregnancy creates a whole different kind of hormonal dynamic. And so there's a lot of things happening in a woman's body that would, merit some pretty hefty responses in a situation like this. She's protecting their child. She's, not in the boat with her husband, and her husband is losing it. So much so that William Clark, who was he was the co-leader of this expedition, pulls out his pistol and points it at Charbonnois and says, "If you don't get control of your boat, I'm going to shoot you." And so during this whole scene, I picture this scene. There's a storm so bad it's going to capsize the boats. And one guy who's supposed to be in charge of the boat has lost it so much that he's just throwing navigational equipment, journals, maps, things that they've kept up to this point that are critical to the expedition. And then the other leader is now threatening to kill this guy. And all the while, Sacagawea is sitting in the back of this other canoe, and she's calmly and methodically pulling the supplies back out of the water and putting them in their boat. And she's just collecting them as they're rolling by because her boat's behind in the current. She's collecting this. And both Meriwether Lewis and William Clark documented this in their journals. They praised her for her courage and her sound judgment and quick thinking during this particular time. The reason why I share that is because talking about emotion and emotional IQ, the word is actually, or the term is EQ, not IQ. IQ is intelligence quotient. But there is a term that was coined in the 80s, has gotten really popular in the last, 5-10 years, emotional quotient, which is basically the measurement of somebody's ability to think and reason with their emotions or over their emotions. Yeah. And so in this particular moment, the issue is not gender. The issue is not she's a woman, she's reacting that way because she's a woman. These are men, they're the leaders. Clearly, it wasn't a gender issue. Everybody was reacting on different levels, and different emotions are flying everywhere. And the reason why that's significant is because it's, it's not that this is science-based stuff. I've done some research on this, and I'm definitely not a pro or well-versed person in this, but common research shows that this is not, emotions is not an issue of gender, but, or I should say emotional experience is not an issue of gender, but emotional expression often is. And so how people express their emotions is the issue of EQ. That's what determines EQ. And so I've thought about this story. It's another similar story, but this is in the Bible. In Samuel 25, I'll just summarize so we're not taking tons of time here. But a man named Nabal he's a very wealthy man in modern economy. I did some chat GPT calculations. I had chat GPT work this out for me, but he would have been a multimillionaire in modern day economy based on livestock and land and all that. During this specific time in the Bible, this guy has now just sheared his sheep, which means they're selling and reaping the benefits of having his livestock, right? So they've just reaped in a huge profit. Now there's celebrations involved, there's feasting, there's the purchasing of goods, there's all kinds of stuff happening right now. And David, at this particular time, comes and basically asks or sends his servants to ask Nabal for help. Basically, hey, we need some food, some supplies. And he says the words, "We were a wall around about your shepherds during the off season. And the reason why your men stayed protected is because of us." And his servants actually testify to that. Yeah, that's true. Nabal, basically turns his nose at David and says, "Who's David that I should give him of my goods?" And so, this is David. David gets so pissed off that he basically says, "I'm, gonna kill every male in this guy's house." And Abigail is Nabal's wife. She hears about this and she basically, runs to David, says, "If you do this, it's a very foolish decision. Be wise. God's going to make you king. Nabal's a fool." And she becomes the steady mind in this whole situation. So again, and David praises her for this. You stop me from wrath and all this. So the reason why, again, I'm sharing that is because it's not an issue of gender. It's an issue of control over emotions, right?
Yeah.
And clearly this woman had the emotional control. Now, I have met men who are more emotional than a lot of women I've met. And I've also met women who make some women look masculine in the way they handle their emotions.
Yeah.
And so it has never been an issue of gender. It's always been an issue of personal control, self-control, right? And so the question I have for right off the bat is why, or what is it about emotion that leads men and women down bad roads?
So, yeah, that's a why. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, the reason is because emotion is not reason. They're not related to each other. And so by definition, anything that you do out of emotion is not going to be because you thought things out. You are reacting to something. And that's where the problem really lies, and why emotions and allowing emotions to dictate how you make decisions is such a bad idea, because it's not working with facts. It's working with suppositions, and jumping to conclusions and all kinds of, not well thought out ideas, are all mixed in with that. And, you can't, one of the things that I have learned over the years about myself is that how easy it is to make decisions without having actually the sufficient information. And that when new information comes in, how clear it is that the decision that either I was going to make or did make was inaccurate, was not the right decision to make based on new information. And so it's very critical that decisions be driven by information, and emotions don't require information in order to become charged. It's a much faster reacting system in the body's systems. It's a much faster reacting than logic and reason. Logic and reason take a little bit of time to catch up, which is why the whole fight or flight, is all part of that same system. You want to make a quick reaction to a thing, and I think one of the disadvantages of believing in evolution is that you have to buy into that lie that the reason why we act this way, that whole fight or flight thing, is because we needed that in order to keep getting from being eaten by saber-toothed tigers. And so we continue to use this process, absent of saber-toothed tigers, to destroy ourselves, thinking that this is an evolutionary necessity for us to have this response. But how about just simply the fact that there are two systems at work in our thinking? One is faster than the other. They both exist. They're both there in order for us to be able to respond and react to everything, and to be able to actually be pleasant people to be around. Because if everything was done on the basis of that logic, it would be very difficult. I won't mention any cultures, but anybody who's traveled a little bit knows that there are certain cultures that are very cerebral, and telling jokes can be very difficult. Because you tell them the joke and they're like, "So that's not true." And it's like, no, it's a joke. It's not about truth. It's just funny. It's called hyperbole. And so, well, yeah, there's no place for that. There's no need for that. Why do we need to have that? Why not just deal with things in a factual way? And so it's very difficult to try to joke with them, because it's easy to fly right over their head, because it takes too long for them to get the joke culturally. And so it's very we're very fortunate to have both systems at work, so that things can, so that we can jump ahead a little bit, and while our logic is catching up, so that we can, that's one of the things about AI. That's one of the hurdles of AI, is the idea of being able to take shortcuts. Because with AI, that's the one of the reasons why humans are smarter than AI still, is because of that issue of being able to jump to conclusions, in a positive way. There's a negative way of jumping to conclusions, but being able to cut out the fat in the middle. Let's just jump to here because I've seen it happen a million times before. There's a 90% chance that I'm right about this, so might as well go there. There's a 10% chance I'm going to be wrong, but it's not life threatening, and so I can take the chance, and more than likely you're going to be ahead of the game. And so that's why. But that's the problem, is that when you see that as a way of living, well, now you're not thinking about probabilities anymore. You're not thinking about the 10% chance of being wrong and whether or not it's life-threatening. You just go do it and see what happens. When you're emotional, like getting mad, which is what often how emotional people manifest, is they'll get mad real quick. They'll jump, they're yelling and screaming, and they haven't even got all the facts yet. I remember I was with a friend of mine. We were in a hotel, and the hotel charged him. It was in England, and so they charged him a lot of money for. It was a nice hotel. He wanted to stay in this hotel. It was a very nice hotel, and he wanted to stay in this hotel, and so he actually made arrangements to stay in this hotel, and said, I'll pay the difference for staying in this hotel, because it's a really nice hotel, and I think he brought his daughter or something with him, and then but breakfast, and this is back in 2000, somewhere around there. Breakfast was like 25 pounds, which was like 35 US dollars at this hotel. And all he had was toast. He didn't realize that it was that expensive. So he just had toast and coffee. And he said, this is too expensive. And, for all I had was toast and coffee. And the guy he was planning to, okay, no problem, I'm going to get rid of this. And my friend didn't hear that part of the conversation. He was looking around or something. And then the guy said, actually, it's $30, 30 pounds, not 25 pounds. So we actually undercharged you. And he was making a joke, because he was planning on canceling the whole thing. And my friend blew up. He absolutely blew up. He says, what in the heck are you talking about? I mean, and the whole entire restaurant could hear him. And I said, he's kidding. He's kidding. And he goes, oh, okay. But he was ready to blow a fuse,
Yeah.
because the emotions had run into gear. You should have checked. I mean, they had by all rights. He should have just paid the bill.
Yeah.
And it's breakfast. You paid for the breakfast. You eat what you want to eat. You don't want to eat a lot. You pay for breakfast. You're in there. You're being waited on, etc. You're getting coffee filled, all this. But no, emotion. Boom, hit the wall. At 90 miles an hour. No stopping. And that's usually what happens. But it's because it takes so long for the logic to kick in. But you can't live there. That's the problem, is you can't live there. But people try to. They try to live there, and they can't. They usually end up either making lots of excuses as to why they're acting that way, or they just join the dark side and say, there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with how I'm acting. This is normal. I'm mad because I'm mad. I'm mad because something happened. Something happened that made me mad. And if that something hadn't happened, then I wouldn't be mad. When you're fully capable of controlling all of that. It's like, no, you can't. People get used to using their emotions.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no control over this.
So there's a question that came in. I'll ask this, and then we'll kind of jump into some deeper thoughts here, deeper than my first question. Not than this. Maybe off topic. When trying to explain, you have a feeling that something is right or wrong. How do you avoid words words that imply
Yeah.
emotions because they're not reliable?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I know people who are like that, and I'm gonna. This is probably biased. I'll be willing to admit this is biased. But what I do is when somebody's gonna, especially me, because I have a reputation for not being emotional. When I say something like, "Well, hey, I feel like this is what's going on right now." So you're going by your feelings. I don't pay attention. I don't pay attention, because that's somebody who is emotional, who's trying to use your emotions, or trying to use your logic against you by calling it emotion. And so I don't do anything. You just use the words and don't worry about it. And I said, like I said, that's my kind of my personal feeling on it. And I kind of, and that's what I say, my personal feeling, because saying that's my personal feeling about a thing that's not a confession of, being emotionally driven. It's just a way of stating a situation. This is how I feel about the thing. It's my personal opinion. My personal opinion doesn't have to be, it's not necessarily based on feelings. It's just my personal opinion. But when you say this is how I feel, that's what you mean. This is my personal opinion. So I don't think you need to make a big deal out of not using those words, unless you are a person who is very emotional, and that is what you mean. I just feel like, like if you were to say something like, I just feel like they don't like me, now you're definitely talking about, an emotional thing. But if it's, well, this is just how I feel about a thing, that doesn't, so context is very important. And so I wouldn't worry too terribly much about the words, because your reputation will tell the truth. If somebody doesn't want to listen to your reputation and they just want to word trap you, well, you find somebody else worth talking to. That's not just what, don't waste time with people like that.
So what are some so you've been a pastor for a while, and you know totally worth mentioning for anybody that doesn't already either know this or assume it, that working with people is your business, and that's what you do. And so,
Yep.
and the truth is, and I mentioned this last week with myself personally, but now scale that out to a congregation of multiple people and multiple situations, both those who are still here in the congregation, those who have come and left, whether on, super horrible terms or just because of their own, not that any of those terms would be good, but, people who have left out of emotion, or people who have left out of, some sin or things they're involved in or things they choose to do. What are some of the most, I want to call them commonly ignored emotions, things that that come up in people that people are just like, they don't even see that what they're doing is out of emotion. What do you think is this? Like, they get so angry they overlook their anger, or they, what are some emotions that you have seen cause damage that people just don't even really consider?
Well,
Does the question make sense?
yeah. It's not, yeah, it's degrees. I think it's more degrees than the particular things themselves. It's degrees, because we're all trying to keep ourselves under control. None of us has the mastery over self. We're all trying to gain the mastery over ourselves, to bring ourselves under control. But I would say, more generally speaking, is that it's not so much the it's not so much a specific, a thing. It's funny you're mentioning this, because I was there's some thoughts that are rolling around in my head for probably next week. I'm not probably going to preach on it this week, but next week, just because thinking about this kind of idea, thinking about these issues and people and decisions people make, and how to, because I'm always trying to think of ways to, not to rescue the people that are trapped in those things, because honestly, I think that often the reason why those people are trapped is because they want to be. They're just hoping. They were hoping. It's not so much that they want to be. They were hoping that they could eat the cheese without springing the trap. And that is the real problem, is that why are you even messing with that cheese? Why do you even need to have that cheese? It's like,
But clearly there's an element of desire there, right?
well, there is, but that's the thing, is that I know this is a trap. I know I could, it could catch me, and it could have horrible consequences, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I do think that there are a lot of people that are like that. And but the as far as help goes, and trying to help people in that kind of an environment, I think it's very important that that to understand that idea of you are always in control. You have to understand that you're always in control, and so it's not the thing itself, the specific thing. I mean, there are obvious things, you know, low. I think when you talk about it, so if we single out, I think one factor that we could look at, in terms of a thing that's overlooked, is that anything that the Bible teaches, already, that we shouldn't be doing, but you're doing it, you're doing it anyway. You are operating on an emotional level. Period. End of story. Because you know that you shouldn't be doing it. You know that the Bible says to know to do good and not to do it to them, it is sin. You know that God takes sin seriously, and we could go on with the logic side of things. And so, why are you doing this? But that, I think, is the issue, which is not taking seriously what the Bible teaches. And I think even as a non-Christian, it's funny when you go back years. If you go back and you actually do some reading, from years ago, you'll find it's funny to me. You hear these phrases like, people were, we've become more mature now. We talk about the age of enlightenment, and the idea that we've become smarter than we were before because of scientific discoveries and technological breakthroughs and these kinds of things, that we're somehow smarter. But the problem is that you can, from the technical side, we are smarter, but from the moral side, we're stupid. We're dumber. We're not better. The previous generations were far more moral than we are today. Far more. They weren't arguing over, whether or not, children should be aborted. They're not arguing over whether or not it's right to get married. These were just things that people just understood. It's just the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. It's the intelligent thing to do. If you were stupid enough to get, to have sex before you got married, then you should get married, and make it right. That was the say, make it right. Not for morality's sake, the idea of this religious morality, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Just plain, it's the right thing to do. but that it makes logical sense, and so when it comes to that kind of thing, so getting mad, having grudges, being bitter, all these kinds of things that the Bible teaches are sins, to do that, and to say, well, I can't help it, is just pure. That's probably a purely classic, somebody who's emotionally driven, because they're not, even when they know they're wrong, they don't know why they're wrong. It's like, I know I'm wrong, but I don't know how to stop it. And it's like, that's proof that you are an emotionally driven person, because how can you know something is wrong and logically still do it? I use the example, if you hit yourself in the head with a hammer, and you say, this hurts, and you do it again, what kind of conclusion can I come to about you? You're insane. That's all there is to it. You are not right in your head. There's something abnormal going on in your head. But so is that the only factor that's going to keep us from doing something that we shouldn't do, is physical pain? There has to be physical pain involved for us to decide that something's not right, or can we just come to the conclusion that something's not right because of the bad fruit that it bears in our lives? Just the consequences of making those kinds of decisions, the kind of things that how life plays out for us, and especially in light of other people who they're not doing those things and they're prospering. We are doing those things and we are not prospering. Why does there have to be pain involved? Why does there have to be blood, before you're convinced that you need to stop, behaving a certain way? Because it's all the same, when it comes right down to it.
So what are some things that, like, so I'm thinking about this in terms of people in general and the issue of emotions. What are some things about emotions that, or I should say, how do emotions limit or even prohibit people when it comes to experiencing God and having,
well, it doesn't just prohibit experiencing God. It prohibits experiencing life, because when you see, because the lie is that, you have to be an emotional person in order to feel pleasure, excitement, joy, all these kinds of things. And no, you don't. You don't have to be an emotional person to experience these things. And the truth is that, I doubt very seriously, if you put me on a roller coaster with a really emotional person, and we both like roller coasters, I doubt very seriously that when we get off the roller coaster, that I'm going to look at this other person and go, you know what? I really like roller coasters, but my lack of emotion really does give you the advantage for things like this. Because it doesn't. It doesn't, because I'm free to experience the emotions. I'm not clamping them. I'm not. I'm not turning off my logic, or my reason. So I'm not standing up, during the ride because I'm having such a great time and get my head lopped off by the next bridge that we go under, But I'm still having a good time, And the truth is that 5 minutes, if that long, after we get off the ride, they're not still running on the dopamine, from that experience. We both fizzle the same way, And so the idea that you have to keep it's the logic of it'd be like saying, if you really want to get the best mileage out of your car, leave it running. That will give you the best mileage. If you leave it running, leave the engine on all the time, because that's how you get the best mileage, because the engine is always warm. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, that's not true. That's not true, because you're spending a lot of time and a lot of money in gas sitting idle. Yeah. And the analogy is exactly the same. You don't have to be riding your emotions and keeping your emotions on warm in order to experience them, because they turn on like that.
Yeah.
It's like an electric car. Your emotions will turn on as soon as you need them. You don't need to be constantly turning them on to make sure they're still there. And so the idea of living off of your emotions is unnecessary. And it's a misnomer. I think that many people who are emotionally driven actually believe is that I want my emotions to be intact. I want to be able to feel happy. I want to be able to feel sad. I want to be able to feel and express and experience all that life has to feel and express and experience. Okay, fine, but you can do that and be completely logical at the same time. You're not sacrificing the one for the other. They're two different systems. They work independently of each other. And they are symbiotic. They're symbiotic to each other. Is that they both help each other along. The one keeps the one under control. The logic, keeps the emotional side under control, and the emotional side can give quick feedback for the logical side to be able to make decisions about. You know, so it's not necessary to be on 10 all the time.
Yeah. So what about emotions and the issue of sin? Thinking about,
Well, that is everything. Think about the definition of the progression, of how and we are drawn away by our own lusts and enticed. That's not a logical process.
right.
That's an emotional process. Being drawn away by our own lust. You look at, the decision to eat from the tree was an emotional decision on Eve's behalf. There was no logic involved in that at all, because she was actually avoiding logic, in making those decisions. God said this, but I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to think about what it looks like. I'm going to think about, what it can do for me. I'm going to think about what the potential of what it will taste like. Those are the things that she was focusing on. I'm focusing on the possibility that when I take that fruit, A, B, and C is going to happen. Without any evidence of that at all, because she doesn't know what it tastes like. She doesn't know, the kind what wisdom even looks like, coming from eating the fruit of a tree. She doesn't know any of these things. She has no experience to base that off of. She's just purely making an emotional decision.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that every emotion has the potential to lead you into sin? And
Yes.
is there ever a time where I don't want to say unhinged, but being emotional, maybe more than would be like a norm is understandable?
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to go here, but I might as well just say it now. Is the truth of the matter is it's not so much about shutting off your emotions. That's the problem with most people. Most people is the fact that they have unplugged their logic.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid that somehow having logic associated with their life is going to take all the fun out of life. And that's what it is, because they see people who have logic and they think that people who are logical don't have fun and don't have pleasure. That's so far from the truth.
Yeah.
I believe, and it's just my personal belief, that I have more enjoyment in life because my logic is plugged in. Because when I do something that is right, there's an emotional rush that comes from that is completely legitimate and doesn't need to be checked, because it's okay. Sometimes I'll be writing a sermon, I'll finish the sermon. It's interesting to me. Sermons are like, studying for sermons are kind of like eating a good meal. Well, let's say eating a meal, not just eating a good meal. Eating a meal. When I'm done, there's like this satisfaction thing. That was a good study time. That's going to be a good sermon. That's going to be a helpful sermon. I really like this. There's some that it's like eating, McDonald's, and it's like, I know for some people that's way out there, but when you've lived in the San Francisco Bay Area and you've ate at nice restaurants, you're not craving McDonald's anymore. But sometimes it's like there's a pleasurable and it's emotional. I feel good about this. I literally feel good about this sermon. Whether the sermon is going to be good or not, based on my feeling, that there's nothing to put those two things together, but I feel good about it. And I've been studying, and it's right. It's a logically right thing to do. And the whole experience is that much better, whereas before I got saved, I would thrill seek, by doing things that I shouldn't do. And I was always, I always had to check. Not so much, I didn't have to check my emotions. It wasn't checking my emotions. That's not the point that I want to make. The point I want to make is I always had to chastise my emotions because I'm doing something that's wrong, And so I'm doing something that's wrong. I have no right to enjoy the thrill of what I'm doing because what I'm doing is wrong. And I think that's how God created us. And I think we can shut that off. We can shut that process off, and we can learn how to do things and enjoy doing evil. And the Bible talks about people like that. Their conscience has been seared with a hot iron. But now you're in a real dangerous situation because now you can make bad decisions. You're capable of making very, very bad decisions now because you have entertained the idea that evil, that good can come from evil because your emotions are involved. And now you're in a very, very, very bad situation. And that's why you have people that are, repeatedly making bad decisions. And you look at that and you look at them and say, well, why are you making these repeatedly bad decisions? Well, because they're always giving their emotions a run. They're always riding their emotions. And it's like, this is cool. This will give me a good feeling. And it's like, yeah, but it's gonna have, negative consequences, afterwards. And so, it's like, it's one thing to have a big Thanksgiving meal, but it's another thing to have Thanksgiving every day.
Yeah.
You can get away with one big huge Thanksgiving meal, and what are the kinds of things you usually say after that? Is like, oh God, I ate way too much, and I feel sick. I slept for 12 hours. All these negative things. And you say, but it was good, but just Thursday, not Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Hey, let's just take this into New Year's and February and March and June, and because then you're going to be checking yourself into the hospital. You're going to be having all kinds of regular health problems. There's going to be all kinds of negative factors that are going to happen there because you just can't go there. You can't just give in to the negative elements of life just because your emotions find a thrill in it.
Okay, I'm going to pitch this out as a question to the audience. Name some good things about emotions, just off the top of your head. What are some good things about emotions? And I'm curious to see what people. I pitched that into the chat box. You can file your questions there or your answers there. What do you think about emotional control? Really, I mean, the aim of the podcast, I didn't necessarily say this in the beginning, but It really is the title. It is how to increase your emotional IQ or your EQ.
See, and that's the thing is if you think about it, what are you doing when you're increasing your emotional IQ or your EQ? Think about that. Why are we not talking about it from the standpoint of decreasing it? If it's a bad thing, why aren't we talking about decreasing it? Because it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because the reason why it's called emotional IQ is because it's emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It's not just emotion, your emotional quotient. It's your emotional intelligence quotient. How can you be intelligent emotionally? And that's the thing that is what we should be driving for in our lives. It's not the idea of suppressing, and that's where people get this all wrong. I find that it's emotionally driven people who don't understand why I'm not an emotionally driven person. People who are like more, neutral when it comes to, logic versus emotion. Okay, fine. Fine. You don't choose to be emotional, but emotional people, they see it as some sort of, short circuit. You are short circuiting something that God gave you to enjoy. You need to be able to laugh hysterically without control. It's a requirement. It's a necessity. You have to be able to just lose it. There was a that video. There was a video, YouTube video that we were looking at, because I'm your typical, hoarder's not the right word. Keeping things for a future date that are useful, is a whole nother
Know where
way.
you're going.
But that whole video, is I need a piece of wood that's like this, and it's like a useless piece of wood. It's like, I've got it, but the end of the video, he's going around in circles, rolling on the floor, kicking his feet up in the air. And as I'm watching this video, the video, I was totally, because I've had moments like that where it's like, I've got this. I've got it in my garage and I need it right now. And I'm so glad that I kept that. I didn't throw that away. And I have a lot of bits and pieces and stuff like that. And I have that experience on a, fairly often situation. As Jordan, you asked me, why do old men always keep, buckets of rusty hardware? And it's like, well, we don't keep buckets of rusty hardware. We keep buckets of hardware. It just gets rusty over the years. That's what happens,
And every old man knows what you're talking
yeah.
about.
But the idea is, what? I'm going to need these screws at some point. I may not need every one of them tomorrow, but I'm going to need every one of them over the next 20, 30 years of my life. I'm going to. It's going to, you watch, and anybody who's like that knows that time that you threw away, I threw away, I don't need this electrical device. I don't even know what it is. I'm going to throw it away, to find out that it was a $300 electrical device and I just didn't even know about it. And I threw it away, and it's like, if I'd have kept that, I could be using that right now rather than spending the $300. But my point is that they get at the end of it, they're going around in circles and kicking their feet up in the air and, losing it. I mean, losing it emotionally. And so I'm watching the video and I thought, well, you ruined it here, because that takes it too far. That's just gone too far. That's not the idea. And I know it was trying to be joking, but it missed. It already made its point, the idea that we do have times where we find the thing that we've been hanging on to forever useful. And the joke of that there's probably 100 other things, that are in our garage that aren't useful. But but when it went that far, it was like, that's a bummer. It just took it too far. And that really is the problem with emotions, is just we take it too far. It's as simple as that. It's just simply the idea of taking it too far. It's not emotions are not good. It's that we take it too far where it's no longer intelligent emotion. And that's the real problem. And I think that's where you find this idea, especially from a medical perspective, of the idea of, emotional intelligence, is the idea of, okay, how can we throttle our emotions so that our emotions remain beneficial, and maximize it. Again, back to the car illustration, I was into cars when I was younger. I still love, the whole funny car drag racing, not just drag racing, so pure power and the spinning of the tires and then taking off and all of that, it's all great. You're maximizing the power and for this moment and you've got all that. And there is definitely an emotional element to it. But if you were to just sit on the track and then just race the engine, just gun the engine until it blew up, there wouldn't be anything thrilling to me about that, because it's just stupid. It's just, why did you do that? That was an unintelligent thing to do. Well, it's the thrill, of hearing the motor. Yes, there is a thrill of hearing that, but not to the point of blowing the engine up. So emotions, by definition, to maximize emotional experience, it has to have a ceiling. But it needs to have a ceiling that you don't have to enforce. That's what makes it work, is that you can take it so far. I have friends of mine, I get together with them and we are laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing, but we're not laughing at nothing. We don't just get to the point to where we laugh at nothing. It's just, you got to keeping the jokes good. You got to keep, if we're capping on somebody in particular, you got to do it in such a way that you're not being offensive and hurtful to the person, that it's still fun and everybody's still enjoying themselves, but you have to have that, in order to maximize hours, and then we can go for hours. We go. I always look forward to going to Prescott Conference in January, because I'm going to get together with some, especially my friends in England. I especially love getting together with my friends in England because they have such wit. It's just ingrained. It's built into the English psyche. Just being witty is part of it. So I love getting together with them because I love being around people that I can throw out all my wit without them being offended, but at the same time they can throw it back at me, and I'm having a hard time keeping up. And so it's great. It's great fun. But it's emotional, but it's not exclusively. It's emotion, intellect. And the greater the intellectual involvement, the greater the emotional experience. And so I can literally walk away from being with those guys and think, man, I love being with them. And it was such a great time, and the good feeling of it can linger for a long period of time, because none of us is worried about stepping over the line, because our intelligence stays intact. We're not getting offended, and so we're going to throw out some barb, just purposely. We're not going to cross the line. Some people I joke with like that, I can't joke with them because I know that they'll get to a point to where they will have to cross the line rather than to admit defeat. Okay, you beat me on that one. You got me. I'm nailed. And that's part of the fun as well, is losing. It's like playing a game. It's like, sometimes you lose. And losing is part of playing. It's not, you don't just win in incessantly. And so hopefully, and that's what I'm trying to communicate, is it's not the idea of trying to cap your emotions. It's trying to tailor your emotions so that your emotions are always wearing intelligence.
Mm-hmm. So let's, I've got a couple of answers in here. I'm just curious, your thoughts on these and how they roll. I like this second one here. The first one is, you can feel pity for people's hard situations. This is what the question is: what are some good things about emotions? You can feel people's pity, or feel pity for people's hard situations. Feel a connection with new friends. Be excited with people when something they want happens for them. And then the second is, makes life more colorful.
So all of those things are true, but only when they are wearing intelligence. Because think about any one of those things that you mentioned and just put it on override, emotional override, and it loses that thing. We see it, we see it especially, you see it on social media a lot, is somebody, somebody needs help, like, for example, and they'll do something, like what's that website when you're trying to raise money? What's it?
Oh, the GoFundMe.
GoFundMe. Yeah. So GoFundMe, so you're on, oh yeah, they started a GoFundMe page or whatever. And then you get people that get on and go, yeah, and you dirty, filthy, stingy dogs, you need to go on there and you need to give, Well, that ruins the whole thing, because where's the compassion for anything in that? There's no compassion whatsoever. This is just you, indulging dopamine to the nth degree. You might as well be taking heroin, because you don't care one bit about the person or the situation. This is you just on a tirade, because you've lost control of your emotions. And so, yes, intelligently controlled emotions allow you to be able to feel and identify with people to action, not just feel. I feel, it's action to action. Like today, the KOIT, I always listen to them every year because of the Christmas music, and I love the old Christmas music. I know why I like the old Christmas music, because it gives me, it's always been, I listen to it because it's like I can live in this little fantasy that at least for the next month, people who aren't saved can still be decent people.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and because there's so much good that's going on, in the thing, but then they're gonna turn it all off, come December 26th,
Yeah, yeah.
because it goes back to the selfish, self-centered, me and mine, of the secular world, and advertisements and things like that, and and they're just trying to desperately. I really wonder what their listenership is like, after like on the 26th versus the 25th, and but anyway, my point in all that is just the idea of you can take this stuff too far. You could just go too far, and it's no longer it's no longer balanced, and that's the thing, is there's no longer balance between what does it mean to be you know doing good, and then what does it mean to have gone too far in doing good, where it's no longer good.
So we have another answer here, and then I'll ask a couple just closing questions that'll hopefully leave us with some practical homework, some take-home stuff, which is, I think, a very easy thing to do, considering the fact that the emotions originate in the brain. The brain is a muscle. So, and there are scriptures in the Bible, like one, when the Bible talks about in Ephesians, be angry and sin not. And so, we talked about the issue of how emotions can have the potential to lead you into sin. But I don't think Paul would say something like that if some people were just predisposed to not having emotional control.
Right, and it needs to be filtered through the understanding that Paul is quoting an Old Testament scripture. He's not giving his opinion about a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are actually two verses of the Old Testament that he's quoting from: "Be angry and sin not, let not the sun go down on your wrath." They're two scriptures from the Old Testament. And so you have to understand that when he's talking like that, he's not trying to tell us, hey, listen, guys, I know what it's like to get pissed off, and you want to kill people and stuff like that, but you really need to work on trying to bring that under control, and I know how hard it is. None of that is included in there. Those are quotes from the Old Testament, and they are simply quotes. This is not Paul revealing some character flaw in himself that he's trying to work out, or some character flaw in humanity. He's actually talking about commandments. These are commandments, and we are commanded not to let the sun go down on our wrath. In other words, we are responsible to curb our anger, period. And that all anger needs to be checked, and that's the idea. And so again, coming back to everything that we've been talking about, is intelligence checks your emotions, but the benefit is when you don't have to consciously do that anymore. You're not reeling yourself in every time you have some emotional moment in your life. You can just simply, you're just not going to go there.
Yeah.
And it brings, there's a genuine joy to life. There's no need to get all freaked out about a thing. You can, just, you're already in control. You already have the emotions are the children, and the intelligence is the mom and dad.
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah. So, okay. So let me look at this answer here, or think about this answer lastly, and then we'll ask a couple more questions. So this is, again, an answer to name some good things about emotions. It's you can feel the wrath or joy after stupid or rational decisions, and be glad or sorrowful, making you think twice and self-reflect.
Well, that's not really true. The potential is there. The potential is there. But that goes with my saying, is you can either learn from example, which is engaging intelligence, or you can learn from being clubbed over the head with a 2x4, which is the emotional, mistakes that we're making. But that's the problem, is that you don't learn from making emotional mistakes. You just know that mistake is wrong. It doesn't mean you're not going to do it again.
Yeah.
Because you're not dealing with the root of the problem. You're saying, oh no, I learned, I'm never going to do that again. Well, but so here, stupidity comes walking into your room, or walking into your brain wearing, jeans and a t-shirt, and you say, and bang, you make horrible decisions. You say, I'm never going to do that again. But the exact same scenario comes in wearing a suit, you're going to make the same stupid decision again.
Yeah.
Because you're really not understanding the problem. The problem isn't the kind of clothes that it's wearing. It's the decision itself. It's the issue itself. But that's why, kids do this.
Yeah.
You tell them, don't touch that. And then they go, it's like, I said, don't touch that. It's like, it's my elbow. I'm not touching it.
Yes.
It's like, that's not rational thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't remember the scripture. It's either which book. It's Ecclesiastes or Proverbs. It says anger settles in the lap of a fool. It's this idea of it planting itself there.
Yeah.
It's going to be there. It likes
Yeah.
your warm lap.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of welcoming it. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's you're inviting these things into your life that are going to ruin your life just because they have a change of clothes.
Yeah.
And that's it's like what made you think that this decision, which is very similar to the last decision that you made that blew your life up, what makes you think that this is a good decision? Well, the last time was the reason I made these decisions is because A, B, and C happened. But this time I made that decision because D, E, and F happened. It's like, but you made the same decision. Why can you not understand that the problem was the decision, not the circumstances? The circumstances aren't what made that a bad decision. It's a bad decision. Yeah. Like I said, hitting yourself in the head with a hammer. There's no scenario that's a good idea. But you have to wait until blood shows up to decide whether or not I hit myself in the head with the hammer this time, and it wasn't as painful as it was the last time. It's like, what did you learn? What did you learn from that? You didn't learn anything, because you're going to end up killing yourself with a hammer. That's what's going to happen. That's the result of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do the next time? You're going to hit yourself a little harder.
Yeah.
And because you're not using wisdom, you're not using logic, you've turned off the intelligent side of you that says, this is documented.
Yeah.
Hit yourself with a hammer, you're gonna die from it. Yeah. It's a documented fact. It's not. There's no question behind this. Just because your experience didn't bear that out, doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And that's where a lot of people live, is they make these emotional decisions based on, well, I think this will be okay for me. And it's like, what makes you think it's going to be okay for you if it's not okay for anybody else?
So I can be kind of transparent here that in my lifetime, I have definitely been known to be an emotional guy. And there was a time not so long ago that emotion definitely made me a very mouthy person, and my mouth has gotten me in so much trouble in my life, and that's been one of the things over the last couple of years now that I've really taken to prayer. I've noticed scriptures that have spoken directly to things like that, the idea of bridling the tongue, and there's so many elements to this, and also some of the things that I know God has highlighted is the benefit of being the type of person that can temper your emotions. And so a good an example where I realized, wow, I'm starting to get this. I'm starting to understand what it means to be able to think before you talk, and actually,
or think before you do anything.
Exactly.
I can't help but thinking about you and your tungsten ring, your tungsten wedding ring.
Oh man!
Not just your tungsten ring, but your tungsten. I'm watching this. I'm watching this play out. And I can see the train coming, and
just for those of you that don't know, when I found out that my wedding ring was bounceable.
Yeah, I was gonna explain the whole thing. Is that I'm looking at this, and pure, unadulterated logic is happening in my mind. This is a ring made out of tungsten. Tungsten is very brittle, very, very brittle metal, but it's a very strong metal as well. So of course it's going to bounce. Of course it's going to bounce. And I'm looking at this, and the look of this discovery in your mind that you actually have a rubber ball in your hand. purely, completely. I have a rubber ball, and I'm
Yes.
thinking, in my mind, wedding ring, something you're going to keep for the rest of your life, not a rubber ball. It's made of tungsten
My wife
steel.
is rolling her eyes right now, I'm sure.
And bing, hey, bing, hey. I'm
Yes.
thinking, the train's coming into 1,000 pieces. No taking that back.
Nope.
There's no taking that moment back. And I'm looking at this thinking, I saw this 5 minutes ago. This experience already happened in my mind. It already happened. I'm just watching
Yes.
it happen for the first time.
Yes. Clearly, joy can lead you to
And it's
stupid
like
decisions as
it's
well.
like, eyes lit up like a little kid. I have a ring that I could bounce. I'm going to go into work tomorrow. I'm going to show people this. I'm going to look at this ring I've got. It bounces. Have you ever seen a ring that bounces like this so perfectly? It bounces. It's like, but
Oh man.
this is not intelligence talking.
Yes.
This is
No,
emotion.
Clearly, this is just emotion.
But that's how it
And
works.
I was
That is how
24
it
years
works.
old,
Yeah,
and
that's how it works. That's how it works. When emotions become the driver, it always ends like that. It always, because emotions don't know when to quit. They don't know when to stop. They don't know when to turn off. There's no stop signs, speed limit. I'm on the highway to hell. That's
Yes.
emotions.
Yeah,
That's emotions.
exactly. Yes. Okay. Now I have to redeem myself.
No, you don't need to redeem
No,
yourself.
I do
It's
because
quite fine.
no, because no,
It's
not
quite
not
fine
for
because
that.
it was a
No,
moment.
yeah, you're right. No, that was actually a lifestyle. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, if the intelligence turned
Yes.
back on, that'll all go away.
So I was in the gym. This is like a few months ago now. There's a new gym, and this new gym has some different standards. Like you can't have I'm pretty used to like taking a bag in with me and leaving my bag where I'm working out specifically to save the spot I'm in. Just, I don't like just carrying stuff around. But this place they don't let you do that. You got to keep all pathways clear. There's no equipment. Like you can have like a sweatshirt and a cup, a water bottle. That's about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm working out. And one of these, I'm sitting there, and I'm kind of sitting on a rack on one side it's got 4 sides to it. I'm using this, and I'm doing what's called a superset. So I'm going between 2 different portions of this specific rack on that same corner. I'm jumping between these 2 pieces of equipment, and some guy, random older guy, walks up and grabs one of the things I'm working with and begins to lean down like he's gonna change the weight setting, and I'm like, hey, I'm actually using that, and he looks at me, and he gave me this look of pure disgust. I was actually caught. I was super caught off guard. I was like, wow, this guy's mad, and he looks at me and he goes, and he holds up this strip of paper that's got the weight labels on it, the weight stickers on it, the weight amounts. And he works there. He's making sure the stickers are on there. And he was so mad at me. He goes, I said, oh, I'm sorry, man. I thought you were going to grab it. And he goes, even if I was going to grab it, if it was packed in here, I would say you need to share the equipment. And I was like, so now I'm like even more caught off guard. I was like, this dude's mad. It was a misunderstanding. And inside there was this thing in me that wanted to boil up and be like, what's your problem, dude? Like, and I wanted to say something. But I thought I got convicted about even thinking this.
Yeah.
And so I said, you're right, man. I'm sorry. If somebody else wants to use it, that's fine. And so he literally goes and turns around and walks away. And so I sit down, I continue my workout, and about halfway through my workout, now this is in my mind, and I'm actually kind of getting vexed. As I'm thinking about this whole situation playing out. I was like, this dude's a trip, man. Why? Why? That was a stupid thing to get mad over. And so I thought, you know what? I need to go talk to this guy. So I walk up to him and I said, hey, man, I'm new here. My name's Jordan. And I said, I just started working here. It was at my work at the university gym. And I said, I appreciate you, saying what you said. I don't really know how the ethics here are in this gym and stuff. I'm pretty used to one of the public gyms. And he goes, oh, no problem, man. What's your name? And so we started talking. And every single time I go to the gym, it's months now. Every time I go to the gym, hey, Jordan, how you doing, man? I made a friend. I
Yeah.
made a good
Yeah.
acquaintance
Yeah.
because I reeled my emotions.
Yeah.
And so like my point in saying that and leading into my last question is what are some things that people can do? Because clearly there's a benefit to
Yeah.
having emotional control.
Yes.
And so
Yes,
what
absolutely.
are some things that you would recommend people do? This isn't a matter of am I emotional, am I not emotional, but things to do and keep on a regular basis, just the habit of doing to increase your EQ.
Yeah. The the intelligence voice is not the emotional voice. The emotional voice is all over the place. The intelligence voice is rational, quiet, logical. And this is what happens when you go ballistic. And that's what you're talking about happened to you. There's this soundness of mind that says this is the way you should handle it. But there's this voice that's yelling and saying, "Oh, that's stupid. There's no way I'm going to do that. No way. I'm not going to do that." But the emotion, the intelligent voice says it's the right thing to do. And if you'll just listen to that, and you'll just learn how to listen to that quieter voice, it'll make a big difference. Because it's not that that voice doesn't talk. It's like I said, it's seared. We sear our conscience. Our conscience is trying to help us and move us in the right direction. But when you've been exercising your emotions too much, and you're there, and you're the kind of person that flips out, and I think, the example that you gave, I think everybody listening should ask themselves, how many people do you not like because of that kind of a scenario? You don't like them. Every time you see them, you don't like them. You think, I'm going to avoid them. I'm going to go another way. Like in a gym, you're going to the gym. It's like, stay away from that guy. He's a jerk, but yet, is he a jerk or are you a jerk?
Yeah.
And you just give yourself a pass because you're not capable of being a jerk. You have already decided that being a jerk is outside of your ability. You don't even have the possible ability. So there are lots of people that are labeled. I'm not going to have anything to do with them. I'm not going to talk to them anymore. When you really haven't, listened to that sound voice inside of you that says, this is right. This is the right way to handle this. For me, and that's a regular experience. I think that everyone can have, is you will make friends that way, because it's always the difficult experiences that build friendships. It's not that your closest friends are the ones that you've fallen out with,
Yeah.
and have fixed it. You fixed it, or that falling out is part of the experience of your your relationship. And so it's easy, to forgive. It's like, I always talk about how Mark Crumpler is one of my best friends, and the reason is because we don't ever question whether or not, oh, do they not like me anymore? We've been friends for years, and there's never a question about whether or not, a question of our motives, or a question of what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, why we're saying what we're saying. There's none of that, and it's not that it when I say there's none of that, what I mean is when the thought comes up, it's immediately destroyed by the intellectual side. No, that's not true. That's, that thought, because the devil loves to, cause trouble and things like that. And so he'll plant the seed, or your own mind, your own emotions will want to go there and, throw out this idea, this thought that, oh, these people, it's funny, people, well, I don't think they like me. It's like, well, what gave you that clue? What gave you the idea that they don't like you? Mm-hmm. I don't know, just the way they looked at me, the thing they said, whatever. And it's like, why don't you just walk up to them and ask them, why run this scenario? Why not just go up and get the answer and get the question answered? So, is there any issues? Is there anything? And when they say no, you don't have to ask it again and again and again and again and again and again. Just settle it. Settle the issue from an intellectual standpoint. So if you're listening to that, that's going to help you a heck of a lot. I think these are the kinds of things when it comes to emotions, is we just let emotions run. and they're not trustworthy. You even, the whole, we talk about the whole fight or flight thing. When you look out of the corner of your eye and you see something, and you think, oh, this is a good thing. That could have been a snake, but it's a stick. And then you're always jumpy, all the time because you don't want there to be a snake when it's actually a stick. Now you've gone too far.
Yeah.
And I know people like this that just, you can never walk into the room with them without announcing you're coming in, because I didn't know you were there, every single time. And it's like, why are you like that? Turn it off, sometimes. Why are you on a hair trigger that, what do you think, that there's somebody trying to kill you? And that this is the moment where they're going to kill you? I listen, I'm sorry that I jump, but you don't understand. I have this fear of grizzly bears. Well, I haven't seen a grizzly bear in our living room in, gosh, ever. But it's like, but you never know when there might be one. And so I think these are the kinds of things where you just have to learn how to listen to that, the voice of reason, the voice of logic, more than you listen to the screaming voice of emotion. And that's why, listen, I'm not apologizing for this. I have no interest whatsoever in social media. I do not care. I do not care who's there. I do not care if the most intelligent people in the world are using it. I do not care if this is how people communicate with one another. I don't care. There is such an overdose of emotion in social media that I'm just, it's a, that the hashtag Me Too shouldn't just have to do with women that have been, in situations, where they've been taken advantage of. Hashtag Me Too should just simply be the hashtag for everybody who uses social media, because everybody on social media, oh, me too, me too. Yeah. I've been there. I've experienced, I have. Yeah. As everybody is like, it's not a healthy place to live. It really isn't. It's not a healthy place to live, constantly being able to identify with other, emotionally unstable people. I've had that experience myself. It's like, turn it off. Turn it off, live in real life. So you miss a few days of stuff. It'll come out. Don't worry. Listen, you know what I've learned? Is that whatever you missed on social media, don't worry. Somebody is going to talk about it.
Yes.
Because they haven't missed anything on social media ever.
Yeah.
So they're going to talk about it. You can get your fill, of that. You want to go on and, check what your grandma had for dinner, and okay, that's fine. That's if you feel that's necessary to your existence, okay, whatever. But it's always, I just want, family photos and stuff like that. Oh, I've got a great thing. My wife, my daughter did this. They've got this little thing that, you can throw pictures on there, from your family, and it shows up on your little display thing. And it's cool. To me, that's cool, because you don't have to have, there's no emotion. There are likes and stuff in there, all that, which is like, why in the world would you want to turn this into social media? Hopefully by now your kids know what you like and don't like, and hopefully now your parents know what you like and don't like, it's like, and maybe your cousins and your relatives and things like that. But why start your own social media platform? How about just, oh, this is cute. Oh, if make me feel a part of their birthday party because they show some birthday pictures. But you don't have to like it. You don't have to say stuff about it. You just experience it and just, be done with it.
We have one more question. It's 8:13.
Okay.
But this was actually asked a little while ago. How do you teach kids emotional intelligence?
Example. Done.
That was easy. All right.
If you're an emotional person, don't bother. Don't bother trying to teach your kids. Your kids are just going to see you as a hypocrite. Number one, they're not going to listen to what you say, even if it's true. Number two is that they're going to look at what you do and ignore what you say anyway. So,
Enough said.
Get dominion over it. Get dominion over it in your own life, and your kids will see that, and they'll want to, when he is old, train up your child in the way that he goes, the scripture in the Proverbs, and when he is old, When he is old, he will not depart from it. It's not when he is young, right there at the moment. But you set a good example for your kids, and your kids will, as they get older, they will either follow that example or they will go brain dead and jump off the rails. And there's nothing you can do about that. You can't do anything about that. But if you want to give your kids any kind of a shot at having emotional stability, you need to have emotional stability. That's that. Otherwise, it's not gonna translate.
Very cool. Well, that's it for tonight. We are 14 minutes over. That went fast now. Jeez. Okay, so we will be here again next week, and we appreciate you guys joining. Thanks for the questions and comments and answers, and we love to have anybody who's in the local area to join us tomorrow night. We're midweek service here at the door. The Christian Fellowship Church in San Carlos, and we'll put the address in just a minute on your screen. And we are also having a special Christmas concert this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. here at the same address. And I think the concert's on there. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the concert is on there, and love to have you there. That's also in person. That is not live streamed, so you'll have to be there in order to experience it. So more to come, and we'll be here again next week.